Half tempted to go pull it up and see how many people are in there.
You should.
It's got 21. It's a triumph.
There you go. You win. Okay. All right. Where the hell's the files?
Kenny must have just jumped off the couch, but it sounded like an elephant just ran across my living room.
Kenny.
Such a little dog makes so much noise.
I just think of that Seinfeld episode with Kenny Rogers Roasters.
Yes.
And Kramer hanging out the window. Kenny. Okay, I think we're ready to roll. That looks good. That looks good. Hey, let me test to make sure you guys can hear voicemails. Oh my God, I need a bigger screen. There's just too much crap on the screen.
I think I should throw you guys up on.
Gord Air here from Victoria in beautiful British Columbia, Canada.
Did you guys hear that?
Long time listener, but
okay.
Yep.
It's Gord. Gord.
Okay, I think I'm ready to do a show. Welcome to Wood Talk. Now, here are three guys who put the fine in fine woodworking. Mark, Shannon, and Matt.
All right, it's Wood Talk number 411 for September 25th, 2017. You know what's cool about our voice guy? He actually, he works in the industry, and I follow him on Facebook, and he posts stuff that he does. Like, he does commercials. You'll probably hear his voice if you watch TV long enough. He does some real deal stuff. It's pretty cool. And he can also mark off, he could put Wood Talk on his resume. How exciting is that for him?
That's the real deal stuff you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Not monster truck races and, airlines and things like that. Okay,
I sure hope that was Lindsay you just kissed. I didn't see the face. Because we're live.
So random lips. Oh.
Sometimes lips just fly by, and I kiss them while they're there.
Oh, if they want to be kissed, who am I to deny a good pair of lips to kiss?
I would agree with that.
Or any pair of lips. They don't have to be a good pair.
Millie, come here. It's my dog. She has nice
lips.
She's got nice lips. They just stink. Okay, so on today's show, we're talking about rabbits and knickers, the trouble with buying your last tool first, and grain direction on a chair seat. And we'd like to thank some folks who helped us out over on Patreon. Let me bring those up real quick. Anyway, that's patreon.com/woodtalk if you want to help us out. Matt Hallman, Cliff Chambers, Stephen Yetzi, Ruben Villanueva, and Mier Gottlieb. Something like that. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate the support.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. Just go to patreon.com/woodtalk and you'll see the reward levels. And one of the best features is you get sort of priority questions, and you get a better chance of having your questions answered directly on the show. So go check that out. We appreciate the support. And let's get to what's on the bench. You know what? I want to skip me. Let me just make mine quick. I really want to get to Matt here. I've just been editing video. Nothing great. Prepping for Woodworkers Fighting Cancer. We're going to be collaborating with Pete Brown. He's the guy who plays with epoxy a lot because I got to do some casting for this project. So, go to the guy who does this stuff all the time. Save myself the trouble of bubbles and cracking and all that other crap that can happen when you try casting and you don't know what you're doing. So that details on the build will be coming up soon, but as always, we will have a big charity build and try to raise as much funds as we possibly can for whichever charity Nicole selected. I can't remember who it is.
Are we saying what it is yet, or is that still hush-hush?
The project or the charity?
Yeah, the project.
The project is just a simple frame with a casting in the middle. So it's a framed casting, but you're basically casting in the frame itself. So there's no movement of the casting. It's just...
That's pretty smart.
Yeah. So the idea is, it can be for remembering someone. You could put things in there that you'd like to just have last forever. You could put a photo in there. Or if you don't have that, that's not the reason for building it. Kids would absolutely love to pick some colorful crap and throw it into a thing of epoxy, right? Like what kid wouldn't want to do that? So...
See, I thought you were talking about spell casting. Now I'm really let down.
Oh, yes. Lightning bolt.
Hello.
Do a little LARPing while we're here. So, yeah, that's the idea. So kids will have fun with this thing. And you could put it in their bedroom. And I don't know. I could see some Legos going in there and marbles and colorful crap. And get the kids involved. It'll be fun. So that's it for me. But Matt, dude, man about town, man about the world.
I'm back. I tell you guys, the show was kind of boring last couple weeks.
Oh, of course it was.
It was a little less. It's a little dreary, Just didn't have that spunk that normally does.
So I envision you sitting on top of Stonehenge with your legs swinging, listening on your phone, going, "Yeah, this is pretty boring." So tell us about it.
Airplane, listen to it.
How did it go?
It was great. It was like the best.
Mm-hmm. I saw the pictures and everything. So,
all right. So moving on.
That was a lot less information I expected to have from you. But there
was so much.
Tell us about it. What happened?
Let's see. Where was I now? Okay, so I got there.
The beginning.
Oh, Mark.
Welcome back.
It's so good to be back. I forgot I have to be a little faster with my delivery of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
England is a country. It's across an ocean. They speak with accents over there.
Evidently,
they pedal their lathe.
They speak slower too. And it's influenced Matt.
Oh, why you do this to me? Whew.
Okay.
I'm dying. Okay. Woohoo. So the first major day was a Thursday that I was there, and that was like a press event at the company that owns Trident. Mm-hmm. It's called Powerbox, and their distributor's called Toolstream. They're actually going to be distributing Rockler products in Europe now. So they had a press event there, kind of highlighting that. It was pretty cool to be able to see that. And I took a look at a lot of the new tools that Trident's coming out with over the next, I think, 12 months or something like that. All their prototype stuff they had there on display and to play with. So that was the first day. And then second 2 days were at Yandel's. That was that sweet lumberyard / tool store. That was incredible. So it was a really fun, it was like a woodworking show. Like you can go there. It's kind of like the woodworking shows. Kind of had that kind of feel where it's like it's a consumer show. You go there and buy a bunch of stuff for woodworking. And you can meet me because I was there. And I was hanging out at the Trident booth.
Wow, that's a bonus right there.
Yeah, right there. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, too much. And then the next week, Monday through Saturday, I took a chair making class. I made a chair out of a log.
Nice.
A straight up log.
That's great.
It's pretty cool.
I saw the bending video. So you had some steam bending to do in there as well?
Yeah, so there were two. The thing I liked a lot about the class was here's some two basic designs, or a few different basic designs, and you can kind of do whatever you want. So the two core ones were just a simple bent, I guess just a bow back. So just a bent back, continuous back chair that you could do, or you could do a comb back, which is basically just a crest rail with the spindles coming out of it. And both of those have steam bending. So you either steam bending like a board for the crest rail of that comb back, or you'd be steam bending the square stick thing for the bow back, which is really cool.
It was a comb back side chair then? There wasn't an arm?
You could do arms if you wanted to, but it was the basic one was armless.
Okay, so I was just gonna say, don't you have to bend the bow for the arm? Did you forget that part?
If you wanted to go crazy, you could do that. And one of the guys there did a double bow back Windsor, which is awesome. And when I got there, Paul, the instructor, was like, "Since you have actual woodworking experience and no one else here does, normally I don't let anybody attempt a chair like that on the first time here at the class. But if you want to do it, you go right ahead." I'm like, I don't want to spend my whole time trying to make this chair and hopefully get it done in time. Like, I want to be able to do something that's approachable, learn the steps, get it demystified, and end up with a chair that's probably not going to be super perfect, but at least I understand the process. And I could have spent my time not standing over my workbench, my work area, and being by myself the whole time. I want to actually go and talk to people and walk around the arboretum that this place was in. So I kind of took the low road, which is I'm pretty happy about.
Yeah, but you don't.
It's exactly what we'd expect of you, Matt. You took the low road.
That does sound like a Cremona thing to do. You don't want to be the guy getting special treatment, then you're working by yourself. No one wants to eat lunch with you. It becomes a whole social thing.
Yeah, that's true. But instead, you spend all your time on the lathe because,
Oh, I have to tell you about that. So that was the funniest thing, probably the whole experience was on Monday morning. We looked at the syllabus or whatever for what you're going to do for the days. It says, whole day on Monday, make 3 spindles. for the stretchers. And I'm like, 3 strokes, that's like nothing. I've been done in an hour. It took me like all day to make 3 spindles.
Oh man.
Wow.
Because I suck at the lathe, and especially with the treadle. Holy crap. That was hard. Really hard. But I can see that if you start with a treadle, a regular continuous lathe would be a breeze.
Mm-hmm.
Like the easiest thing ever. But going the other way, not fun.
That's what Shannon calls woodworking. He
What
totally went the other way.
Oh, well, here's the funniest thing, too.
You didn't
we did
go
that
just to a treadle lathe. You went to a reciprocating treadle lathe. So
yes, that's correct. Yeah.
kind of there's an even bigger step there.
Mm-hmm.
And that it spins the other way.
It's
Half the
interrupted
rotation.
cuts was terrible. And what I found out, we did turning for 3 days straight. And what I found out after day 3 was, like, I was having like a physically hard time doing it. And we found out it's because I'm little. And I literally have to use my muscles to drive the lathe instead of using my body weight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was exhausted. And I had
Should have made a little step stool for you to stand on.
jump off the stool every time.
Well, actually, there's some merit to that. What's his name? The bowl turning guy, the British bowl turning guy, makes axes. Oh shoot, that guy.
Sure,
I
yeah.
don't know. I got nothing.
He makes those like cord bowls, where you make the nested bowls all together. Oh, it's gonna kill me. He makes his own axes now, but he stands on a separate block, so he's essentially stepping down every time he steps on the lathe, on the treadle, and there's a little bit of gravity, but apparently it also keeps your hips from like kicking off to the side, because you spend all day like standing on one leg, and you kind of you do the little well, you're used to this, Matt, standing on street corners kicking your hips out to the side a little bit. But it prevents that from happening, I guess, because if you do a lot of it, he actually stands on a block, and it aligns his hips a little bit better, so you don't end up with the bowl turner's version of carpal tunnel syndrome. Repetitive stress
It sounds bad for your hips. Really bad.
I had the most intense muscle soreness
Yeah.
on that trip. It was pretty rough. I even tried like switch hitting, like turn the other way, use my right leg instead of my left leg. Also very challenging, because then you got to cut in the other direction to make the mechanics work. So now you got to learn how to cut left-handed and right-handed. So I'm like, so that didn't last very long either. But it was fun. And then on Thursday we did the seat. So I got to carve that out by hand with an adze. Both, I guess, is there a different name for a long-handled adze compared to like a hand-held one? I don't know.
Gutter adze?
That's what it would be, I guess.
No, that's the type of blade. But yeah, it's a long adze.
Yeah, long adze. And,
Swing between your legs adze.
I put a picture of that on the internet, and everyone's worried about me cutting my feet off. So,
Of course, because
there's
it's
that.
the internet. Nice.
Robin Wood, that's his name.
Oh.
Sorry. It just popped
I
back in my
have
head.
heard of him.
Yeah, that guy.
Cool.
Mark looks bored.
I'm in it. I'm in it for the long haul, guys. I'm just thankful to be here.
As you should.
Well, that sounds good, man. So did you said that the Triton was handling all, other than like you got a few quick videos here, Triton's doing all the content if we want to see.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I have to tell you. I felt like it's been a long time since I've known what it feels like to be like an actual woodworker, like in your shop just working and not have to worry about a damn camera and like that stuff. So it was super nice. I could just kind of work and just enjoy myself, and the camera was taking care of itself.
That's what I've always enjoyed about classes. Like if I can ever justify taking the time off to just go to a 5-day class, it's so great. You can snap a few pictures on your phone just for fun, but to just woodwork and not think about anything else it is a vacation. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was cool. Sounds like you had a good time.
You just need a camera crew.
There you go.
I do need the camera crew.
Well, cool. Shannon, what do you got going on?
Nothing quite so exciting as traveling across an ocean and stuff. But I've got some veneer work to do. I'm working on a wall mirror right now. It's a Chippendale design with all the fretworked sides, and I have to veneer it with some walnut crotch veneer. So at first I was thinking, I'll just they're not big. The pieces themselves aren't very big, so I just figured I'd put a couple pieces of plywood together, a little wax paper, and smack it together. But I've got a side table to build after that that's going to cause me to do some veneer drawer fronts. And I'm playing with another design, something I hope to do in the new year, in January sometime, that I think I might use a veneer drawer front for that. So I started thinking maybe I should actually like stop for a second and think about building like a little veneer press. The thing is I don't want something super big. I actually have an antique wooden screw, like a bench screw. But the more I think about it, it's like then I'm going to have this like arm and like bed, and
it's a big apparatus.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit in a corner nicely. So the more I think about it, the more I think, oh crap, I'll just get a couple pieces of plywood and some clamps. But I don't know. It just seems like it would be. This is one of those opportunities where you always have that time in the middle of a project and go, I'll just come up with a solution now and I'll do a more formal solution later. Like the number of times that I use my bench hook as a shooting board because I don't want to walk 4 steps to pick my shooting board up off the floor, that type of thing. But I'm thinking I really probably should. So I don't know. I need to play around with this a little bit. Maybe figure out a way that I can create a veneer press with that kind of overarm thing that maybe folds flat or something like that. It doesn't lose some of its stability, because I don't know. I might actually do more veneer work if I had a super easy way to just kind of throw it on the bed, crank the thing down, and be good to go, instead of having to come up with all kinds of calls and use 30 billion clamps and everything.
Cool.
Or I guess a vacuum press would work.
Yeah, why not?
I got plenty of outlets in here that don't have anything plugged into them. So
I was going to say, does that go against the whole, thing?
No.
Well, if he just puts a straw in it, it starts sucking all the air out.
Yeah.
Does that
Can't you
count?
Well, don't they sell the manual ones where you essentially have like a little bellows type pump thing?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, in fact, I think I remember Matt Vanderlist when he made that skateboard
There's
for his son.
The Roar Rocket people.
He had to suck on the tube or whatever because the little pump thing it came with didn't do a good enough job.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I'll just call Matt Vanderlist over.
Yeah, he'll tell you what to do.
Collaborate.
Cool.
Nice.
Actually, just talked to Matt. He's doing okay.
Good to know.
In case anyone wanted to know.
You're good to know.
There's your Vandalist report for this week. Matt's doing okay.
Oh, that should be a thing.
Cloudy with a chance of chortles.
Checking in with Matt. Still doing okay. All right. So let's get into
we could have like a sound bite that we play every single time. I'm great.
All right. So let's move into
what's... I wish Matt became Popeye all of a sudden. But
it always reminds me of Popeye. Yeah. All right. So get into what's new. Shannon, you got the link here.
Yeah, this was sent from Preston, and it's actually funny because anytime something like this happens, some sort of illegal, somebody busted for wood, I get like 300 emails, on my business account, and all of the Wood Talk listeners immediately go, "Oh, Shannon, I want to talk about this." It is particularly interesting though because a company, and I'll link to the article, and you can get it all the who's who and who done what and who's bad and all that. But the Lacey Act, it seems like all anybody can talk about is illegally imported lumber. We have to remember the Lacey Act has been around for more than 100 years, and it was originally created to prevent the trade of feathers, of fowl, because they were like killing birds and making hats and brooches and things out of them. And that's why the whole thing came into being. It wasn't until 98? No, later than that wood actually became amended to add in the Lacey Act. So all anybody talks about with Lacey is illegal wood. Well, here's an example where this company was busted not for the wood, but for the essential oils. They are selling, fine essential oils, beauty products and things like that. And it actually comes from rosewood. And that rosewood is actually an endangered product. So that means you can't do nothing with it, and if you're extracting oils from the tree, it's not like maple syrup. You just tap the tree and, you get your syrup and the tree's fine. Mm-hmm. In this instance, it's you grind up the tree and you run it through a coffee strainer and out comes rosewood coffee or essential oil. So yeah, this actually in my mind is even more awful because you take a species like rosewood that not only is endangered and protected, but you're grinding it up. There's not even any, you can't even say, well, at least we got some pretty lumber out of it. No, just get these little vials of oils that go into a potpourri burner or something like that.
So wait a minute. This must be a hard thing for Matt to accept. I mean, what's he going to do on a Saturday night? No feathers and no essential oils?
I know.
How are you going to go out? So that one.
Well, that and the fact that he's now building stuff from logs, so that whole bandsaw mill he made is completely.
Yeah.
It's going to be out to the curb with a sign on it that says free.
Free
to a good home. Okay, so let's get into our kickback. We actually did get quite a bit of nice, supportive kickback regarding the schedule change. It seems most people understand the reason why I wanted to do it, and in fact, we've got one voicemail here from Gord who gives us a perspective that I didn't even think about until I heard this voicemail, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So here's his thoughts.
Hi guys, Gord Air here from Victoria in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Long-time listener, but first-time feedbacker. I just wanted to comment on Mark's announcement that you're going to be cutting Wood Talk back to the original once-a-week format. When I heard that, all I could think was, thank God. I love the podcast, but I have to tell you, keeping up with you guys over the past couple of years has been exhausting. I listen to quite a few podcasts, some of which come out only once a month or even less, and that's just fine. Wood Talk was the only one putting out multiple weekly episodes, and since you often reference current events, I like to listen to them as they come out, and if I get behind, they start to stack up. It can be very stressful. Now that you're back to once a week, maybe I can get a little bit more work done in my shop. Love the podcast. Keep up the good work. Don't stress about the revised old new format. For some of us at least, it'll be a relief. Cheers from Victoria. See you guys.
See, it's interesting. In the past, I would kind of say that that's crazy. Like, who's going to complain about too much content? If you miss it, you miss it and you move on. But Shannon and I were like talking about this, and it's like, you know what? Things like this actually happen. There are TV shows. Or
I have unsubscribed from podcasts because I get too far behind.
Yeah, it's a weird.
And he's right. Stressful is a good word for it, because you're like, well, I don't want to listen to the current one because I haven't listened to the other two, and you
just give up.
I have 87 podcasts.
Yeah,
the little red circle on my podcast app is like glaring at me.
150.
You have 87 podcasts, and they're all one show that I fell behind on. It's terrible.
Yeah, I've done this with comic books. There's series that I don't have time to read them all, and by the time I get like 4 or 5 behind, I'm like, unsubscribe. I don't want any more. It's a weird phenomenon that happens. It's odd to even think that it could be stressful, but it is for some people. So anyway, I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but I can see where he's coming from for sure. Let's see. Who wants to read this next one? How about not Matt? Not Matt, because it's too long.
Yeah, it's long. I figured. This is Doug from Nicole's hometown in Columbia, Mo.
Heyo.
Let's see.
That's just where she went to
concerning
college.
Wood Talk and time management. Back in 2009, after someone put me onto YouTube and the kind of content that could be found there I found Wood Whisperer and was hooked. I was already. Whoops. Oh, sorry, I've got to expand my screen here because it runs off.
A single column is weird.
Yeah, I was already a hobby woodworker, but I learned so much from the free content Mark provided, and with just enough humor to make it interesting and entertaining.
Not too much, just enough.
Just enough. Later, once I discovered podcasts, Wood Talk immediately became my number 1 podcast. Number 2, the guys who think their woodworking is, quote, fine. But now to the point. If I had to choose between Wood Talk or free video content, as much as it pains me to say, I would choose video content. Thinking about all those like me who are visual learners, the woodworking craft would be better served with good quality and entertaining video content over podcasts. If you find that further cuts are needed, maybe a bi-weekly podcast. I hope it doesn't have to go away, but I understand you have a business and need to support your family. P.S. Mark, Matt, and Shannon, all 3 of your channels are on my must-watch list.
Ooh,
and I love
this
channel.
Ooh.
So again, it's a good point of view, although I think you would find a large number of people who would disagree. The people who commute daily who want to listen.
Yes.
Because I get the opposite of this mailed to me all the time. I love your videos, but I rarely watch them anymore because I don't have time to sit down and watch, but I have time in the car to listen. So I get a lot of people who tell me, I don't actually watch your videos. I listen to your videos.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I can listen to a lot of content. I listen to a lot of audiobooks this way, and I can keep up with audio podcasts. You know what I don't do? I don't sit down and watch YouTube. I rarely, I try to catch you like your updates, both of you guys, just because, that's what friends are supposed to do. But even then, I'm like, I'll get to Matt's England update, next week. And I never get to it. But if it was like in some audio format, I could listen to it. So yeah, it's a format thing. and it's consumed in a different way in a different place. So it just depends on the individual.
Not to discount Doug, but you're wrong.
No, Doug's right for Doug.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, you get the next one. You'll like this one too.
Oh, is it? I have to read this?
Yes.
Yeah, generally, that's what we do on an audio show.
Sorry, I thought it was a voice.
You could act it out.
Yeah, let's do a charades version.
I don't think I can do that. This is from Tommaso. He says, I never thought I would miss Cremona, but the cricket last show was aggravating. You guys really get on about this cricket thing.
The cricket was a pain in the butt.
I think it was mostly because Mark just kept drawing attention to it.
I couldn't not draw attention to it. It was aggravating for me.
Everything's about you, Mark. Everything's about you.
The cricket is gone, Mark.
I think you're right.
It's okay.
It is.
There are no crickets in this shop right now.
It finally expired. I can't imagine they have a long life. Okay, so we got a voicemail kickback here from William regarding Grizzly versus Powermatic.
Hey guys, it would seem the standards are changing without some kind of hilarious shtick for a voicemail. I realize this may not get to air, but here's hoping you play it anyway. With regard to the real difference between something like Grizzly versus something like Powermatic, for me it comes down to the warranty and what happens in a worst-case scenario. I have a Grizzly 19-inch bandsaw and one of their 8-inch joiners. I love the jointer, but the motor ate itself earlier this year, and it's about a year and a half out of its 1-year warranty. Having to replace the motor put me on the hook for the cost of the part, the cost of shipping, and worst, I didn't have a joiner for about a week and a half. I had a joiner plain, but come on. Powermatic and Jet both carry 5-year warranties, and I believe come with better motors to begin with. They may be otherwise identical, but if I'm getting 4 more years of support, I think that adds a lot of value, especially someone who uses these tools almost every day versus a weekend woodworker. Okay, insert hilarious joke here, Baba Booey.
Bubble Booey to you as well.
Let's excellent point.
Let's go ahead and skip William's comments here because it's just another supportive comment about our schedule. I don't think we need to hammer that into the ground any further because you know what it's going to do? It's going to result in the opposite feedback for next week to say, we think it's a terrible idea that you're doing that.
At least there's feedback.
Well, thank you, William. We appreciate your feedback.
We do.
But it's no different from anyone else's, so just shut up.
Why always have to be a jerk? There's nice ways to say things, Shannon.
Actually, I think I deleted part of a comment later on in the show where it signed off as like, goodbye, Harry Giggler, Albino Gorilla, and what was it, like Jerky Mark or something like that.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's pretty accurate. My family even knows this. Okay, so let's get into our voicemail. And this is a first for Wood Talk. We actually have a question in the form of a poem.
Boy.
There once was a guy who made bows and arrows, who now faces many sorrows. He is making a beautiful bow of hickory, but the friend it is for is being persnickety. He insists the bow be stained dark for hunting, but the task, to me, seems quite daunting. Stained products from Minwax and Rust-Oleum ended up being a waste of money and petroleum. Is it, perhaps, that I should instead be using dye? If so, what kind, how, and why? For outdoor protection will be sealed with polyurethane, but maybe I should be using epiphanes? These questions have caused me sleepless nights, and I hope you guys have the knowledge to put me to rights. Because you three are so wise and clever, I hope the Wood Talk podcast lasts forever.
That was pretty good.
That was
Brings a
a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Right? I mean, I could have been really bad.
A good question in poem format.
Yeah.
Let it be known that from now on, you have to submit your questions.
Nope.
In some form of verse.
That'd be good.
Submit all your questions in prose to Megan Fitzpatrick at wmedia.com. She will compose them in iambic pentameter and form them.
And I'm sure they will all go very quickly downhill from here. So, okay, so to translate his question into English, he's trying to dye something or darken the color of something for exterior, obviously for a bow, and wants to keep it dark, but is wondering what kind of dye coloring agent he might use to retain that color.
You got to dye it with the blood of your first kill.
There you go. That's the way. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Come on. Then the bow will be bad luck otherwise. The earth spirits will be displeased. So, yeah.
You know a lot about this. The only thing I could say is I did this recently with my garden gate project. And I don't usually stain something that's going outside, so this is the first time I looked into it. And while there's all kinds of stains and dyes and things out there, I figured I should start with something that is, made and sold and intended to be used outside. Whether or not that's like the only finish I use, you're going to be top coating it with something else. So I wound up going with, what the heck is it? I think it's a Thompson's product, but basically it's like a deck stain. And this was a oil with a little bit of pigment in it that brings it the color. I was able to get the color I wanted, but also knowing that I'm using a product that has some sort of outdoor resistance, UV resistance. And then once that was dry and cured, then I go the whole Epiphanes route. And over polyurethane, definitely a good option for you because the Epiphanes has UV inhibitors. It's a little bit more flexible of a finish, and the varnish is a little bit more flexible, so I think it's going to be better over time for your situation. I should not be drinking soda during the show. Oh, God. That was a bad idea. So yes, get off the polyurethane, get onto the Epiphanes train, yo. And I think that'll serve you well. But look at the outdoor, go to the home center. There's a lot of different things there. I don't know if you guys have ever done this. Have you ever looked for deck and fence products and like those types of finishes? It's like it's a whole new, really stupidly confusing world. Like once I think I have my brain wrapped around the finishing world just in general of like the kind of finishes we deal with. Once I go there, I'm like, there is so much marketing like gobbledygook in what these people are saying. It happens when you put this on wood. It's hilarious. But it's
pretty much all the exact same product.
Yes.
Just a different label on the front.
And they just call it different things because it's usually, these deck projects are usually being done more by homeowners than folks who are like hobbyists or pros of any level. So yeah, it's kind of goofy, but
except the pros are buying the same products and same finishing products at Home Depot and Lowe's. So
right. Well, hopefully they know what they're buying and they know how to read the labels. But probably not.
Leave that one alone.
Okay. Anyways, so hopefully that answers your question there, Chris, or whatever his name is.
Well done on the verse.
Not Chris. Chris is the next guy. It's Bo your boy.
Bo your boy.
Okay. So next one we have is from a guy named Chris, and it's about furniture holding up.
Good afternoon, guys. This is Chris from Virginia. I heard Mark mention recently that his chest of drawers was holding up really well. This surprised me, not because I wouldn't have expected it to, but because I took for granted that anything that Mark or any of you has built would be holding up well, which leads me to my question. Do any of you have large furniture pieces that you built early on that simply haven't held up? Any joinery failures or wood movement problems or finish deterioration aside from outdoor pieces? I've only been woodworking a relatively short time, so I don't have a frame of reference for what to expect on down the road. Thanks again for all you do, and goodbye.
Goodbye. Anything come to mind?
I got a couple of pieces I designed that were meant to be knocked down, like big case pieces that you can't possibly lift when they're all together.
Okay.
And I just used crappy the cam bolts, the little circular things. You drill a hole and the screw comes in the side and you twist the cam bolt. And so much of the hardware itself ended up being, what should we say, metallic coated? I don't even know what it was. Some sort of polymer, I guess. And it just, they're just terrible. And the piece itself became super rickety to the point where when I finally decided to knock it down and move it, it fell down.
That made things easier.
It really easy to take out to the curb.
Yeah, no kidding. I honestly can't think of anything. I mean, I have smaller things, and I even did a video years ago on the website about how my furniture has held up over time and things that kind of worked or didn't work.
That was a pie making video.
Yes, humble pie. That's right. How to make humble
delicious.
Pie.
I was looking for pie recipes, and I found you.
Oh, if you look harder, you can find a pizza recipe and some French toast. I mean,
a French toast recipe.
We do recipes. We're not against that.
I've made that French toast. It's good stuff.
It is. So aside from that, I don't really have anything. I think most things have held up kind of as I expected them to. There's really no major surprises. What about you, Matt?
I have one, I guess, that it's kind of weird. So a few years ago, I made a TV stand. So it's like 3 compartments. There's 2 on the outside of the doors. They're inset, and then it has like an open space with some shelves for like AV stuff in the middle. And what happened with that is the whole cabinet kind of sagged from the way the TV on top and just the overall span of the piece. So that the doors, because I made them, with a really nice gap, really fine gap around there, they don't really open because it's sagged and pinched them. So I guess like the more proper thing there would be like put a foot in the middle and the back or something just to kind of take some of the weight off of it. But that's, I mean, it still works. It didn't break. It's just sagged.
Speaking of sagging, I did a bookcase, the 1 and 2 sheets bookcase. That you just reminded me of this because the edge banding on there is just like 3/4 of an inch thick. It's not like it was done with 1.5 inch banding to make it look like they're thicker, which also supports the shelf a lot better. The shelves do have a tendency, if there's a load on them, they will sag over time. So my mom has this thing. So anytime I see it and think of it, I go in and take everything off the shelf, flip the shelf over, and then let it bend, give it a couple of years to start bending the other way. So the workaround is, make sure both sides look good, because then you could just kind of keep flipping it. And hopefully most of the time it'll look relatively flat.
See, it's funny because when I first started, so much of the stuff I made was small, like keepsake type items that, don't get high, stress to them. It's not a lot of stress on a box, lifting a lid off and putting photographs in it. Back when we used to print out photographs. You probably don't remember that, Matt.
Nah, I don't know what a photograph is.
But when I built bigger things, I went like the opposite direction and like overbuilt the crap out of it to the point where it looked clunky. Like there was no artistry in it. It was just like everything was reinforced and tripled up with angled supports and all kinds of stuff. So that will never. They have half-life designations rather than they're never going to sag. You can drop bombs on them and they'll be all right.
Right. Yeah. It's rated for that. Okay, next one and last one here is from Marin.
Greetings, gentlemen. This is Marin. I hail from the Rocky Mountains of Utah. First up, thanks, you guys, for being inclusive of women in the hobby. Lots of other online woodworking personalities are a bit alienating to me with their dude bro posturing. So I appreciate having a place I can learn and listen to shop talk without being marginalized or treated like a dude. A couple of questions for you. I get a lot of hand and muscle fatigue from woodworking. I've always blamed this on my tiny lady hands wielding tools that are designed and sized for a more burly grip. But I'm wondering, maybe this fatigue is normal. Do I just need to, sign up for CrossFit to support my woodworking habit? Or should I accept my fate and switch to knitting? What do you guys do to prevent fatigue and muscle strain? Second, I'd like to get into the world of integrating more hand tools into my workflow, and I drool over the guild's Rubo plans, but I'm left-handed, and all the bench plans I see out there are obviously set up for righties. Is it as simple as switching the vices to the other end of the bench? And I'm just wondering what sort of accommodations I should think about when designing my bench. I've not really used hand tools before, so I'm not sure what my bench needs are, and I want something flexible as my skills evolve. Thanks for your help. And Mark, thank you for not quitting yet. I love this show.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so Matt,
so we have to address the issue of delicate hands. So
yeah, this is obvious.
Matt.
This is obvious where we're going to take this.
I also have very, very petite hands, so I don't really get like fatigue from power tools. At first, I thought this was gonna be like more of a hand tool question,
right?
But apparently she doesn't use hand tools that much yet, so I'm kind of...
It's only going to get worse.
Well, I have an answer for hand tools, which is with the hand tools, usually you can get something that has a custom handle, and a lot of the stuff that I do have that I use a lot is all been sized to be super tiny, especially the hand saws. If I grab like even a regular size hand saw, it is huge in my hand and extremely uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So all of the saws I do use have custom handles, which are extra small. That's the size, I guess, the size designation, and then they're tiny. And if anyone else wants to use them, they're screwed. But
right.
At least
they're your tools.
My hand.
Right.
But as far as
I could see some of it from the power tools, because especially like the handheld power tools, where there's always like the safety lock that's got to be pressed. Like think a circular saw.
Oh yeah.
You've got to press the safety lock and then pull the trigger. And if you've got really small hands, it might be a bit of a reach. I also think that, and this would be hand or power, there's something to be said about once you're working with the tool, we tend to tense up and like forget to breathe in a tense cut or something like that, and you'll just find yourself scrunching up your shoulders and, squeezing the handle a little bit too much.
You got a death
that
grip
happens
on it.
to me a lot more with power tools than anything because of the fact that I'm actually having to keep pressure on a trigger. I grip it too tightly more than anything else. So I could see that very easily. And I have big, giant, albino gorilla hands.
Gorilla hands, yeah. She could also try, this might sound silly, but I think it could help, is some stretches. So where is the muscle soreness happening? So is it posture? Is it her back? Is it her legs? These are things you could address. If you know those are problem areas, you could try to stretch a little bit before you do these operations. If you're talking about your wrists and things like that, there might be things you can do. But I know when I do hand tools, if I have a lot of hand tool operations or a repetitive thing, I don't use them all the time. So even, for me, when I do a couple days of planing something, I get really, really sore, because it's been a while. And I do have a tendency to death grip the tools because I just haven't done it in a while, but so the more I do it, the more I kind of loosen my grip and get comfortable with it. But I do think stretching could certainly help a little bit here. Do you think, because think about like a circular saw. I actually had a student one time, very, very tiny woman, and she wanted to build like a bunk bed for her kids. So she would come to the shop and I would kind of teach her. She scared the crap out of me because she could not handle a circular saw in a way that I felt that it wasn't controlling her, and you take it for granted, as a grown man, you just pick up this tool and it's no big deal, but not everybody is that, has that much built-in strength. Not to say that like we're like these massively strong people, but a lot of times these power tools, especially the portable power tools, are built for the average grown man. So yeah, I imagine some of these things are probably just heavy for her and difficult to hold.
Well, and I can add to that, as a fellow lefty, Marin, I feel your pain because all of that stuff is designed for right-handed people. Those safety locks I'm talking about, they're designed for the right-hand thumb to reach up and get to it.
Right.
So if you're already working with your non-dominant hand, you're going to tense up. You're going to be awkward no matter what you do. And it's probably a myriad of things coming together, making you just feel like you've been in a bar fight by the end of the day. Sorry, that was it. What was it called? Dude broing? Was that dude broing? Dude broing expression.
Yeah.
Not in a bar fight and a knitting circle fight.
Jesus.
See, you bring attention to it, and now now we're coming off as chauvinist. So, yeah.
Masochist. Jeez, easy. Back off.
Too many big words, and I don't know what any of them mean. So.
Yes, you do. Okay, so
while we're on that topic,
left-handed workbench.
Left-handed thing.
Yeah.
I am a lefty. I have a left-handed bench. Honestly, it all comes down to the tail vise. If you're using a tail vise, if you're using a vise for surface planing, you don't want to be planing into the screw. It's going to put too much pressure on the screw. You'd rather be planing into the dog or a fixed surface. That is why you would put the tail vise on the left-hand side, because your left hip is going against the bench, and that way you're working into the dogs with the tail vise behind you. If you're not going to be using a tail vise, or if you're not certain about it or whatever, you can put a face vise or an in vise. If you're going to use the in vise as your surface vise, you need to think about that as well. But the face vices don't really matter. So if you look at my Roubo, you'll see the leg vices on the right-hand side. And I get all kinds of crap for this on YouTube about how my bench is backwards, and people whine and complain because they can't understand what I'm doing because I'm left-handed. And I usually throw back some sort of four-letter word about how myself and Marin and others like us, heroes like us, have been forced to adapt to the right-handed world all our lives. So suck it up, people, and adapt to one dude on YouTube working left-handed. All right? Everybody who's never been able to find those little green-handled plastic scissors in the little craft box and had to cut with left-handed or right-handed scissors in your left hand, suck it up, righties.
You know what? This is a major opportunity for left-handers, by the way. There is a drummer that I used to follow.
Left-handed lives matter.
Yes, exactly. There's a drummer, the drummer for the Dave Matthews Band. Remember him? His name's Carter Beauford. The guy is freaking amazing, but he is one of the hardest drummers, at least for me, to try to emulate because he's left-handed playing on a right-handed kit. So his hands are in different positions at different times than mine would be if I were playing trying to play his song. So he can do things that I can't do unless I want to try to play like a left-hander on a right-handed kid. It's interesting. So I wonder if that's kind of a similar situation where you might find ways around things that other people just can't relate to because it doesn't make sense. I mean, good on you.
We're more adaptable. We're more adaptable.
You have
to
to be
better people in general.
Yeah, well, like most hand tool users, you are a higher echelon of society.
Yeah. So, Marin, you're looking to get into hand tools. So you're already at a high.
You're already better than everybody else.
Good word. When you pick up hand tools, you'll become superhuman.
Yeah.
Of course, the first thing I tell people is adopt ambidexterity when it comes to hand tools because it's just going to be better. You'll be able to more flexible. But honestly, there's not really a lot to think about. Just shift the leg vise over to the right-hand side. But even then, it's not even because what am I doing? What am I doing at the leg vise? I'm usually standing squared off to it, so facing it, cutting dovetails or something like that. If I'm cutting tenons, I'll put my left hip against the bench and saw like across the leg vise, but you could do the same thing working off the end. In fact, a lot of people prefer that because you're standing off the end of your bench and you've got a little bit more elbow room. So technically you can put a face vise of any kind on the left-hand side and it's not really going to affect you. It's only that surface clamping mechanism that you want on the left-hand side so you're not planing into that screw over time. So if you're not sure about a tail vise or wagon vise, whatever fancy term people have come up for these days, go ahead and put your face vices on the right in case you choose to add them later on.
Is there any logic to planing into the leg vise versus out of the leg vise? You know what I'm saying? So like an edge jointing operation.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I've got an edge jointing. Okay, yeah. So if you're holding the board in the leg vise. Good point.
On edge, you're edge jointing. That would be the one time I would say a lefty might have some discomfort. You're actually planing out of the leg vise instead of into the leg vise.
Yeah. Most of the edge planing I do these days, unless of course it's a wider board, I'm actually doing on the bench top against the planing stop. So thank you for bringing that up because I don't do that as much anymore. But yeah, it's a good point. Now you're going to, well, I mean, even then, I suppose you could be standing off the end of the bench and planing, but then you might be like bumping into the leg vise.
But ultimately,
try to go by it or something.
It's not hard to reverse the orientation of the bench. Like if she likes it, it's actually fairly simple. And I won't say it's trivial. You just got to remember that everything is the opposite, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah, yeah. If you're really, really confused, just look at pictures of my bench. That's a left-handed bench.
Yeah, there you go. All right, and let's see. What do we have left here? I think that's it for voicemail. And if you want to leave us a voicemail like those kind folks did, you could use your voice memo app and send that to woodtalkonline@gmail.com. And let's get into our email. Let's see. So the first one I have here is from who? Mike. He says, I have a $2,000 budget for purchasing a router table system. I am quite new to woodworking, but at least to this point in the hobby, I want to specialize in boxes. I've spent the last several months researching the various options and have hit overload. I hate that. I don't really have the patience for hand-cutting joinery, so I was almost ready to go with the woodpecker table and the Next Wave CNC style fence. I don't even know what that is. And fence and lift when Mark bought his Incra setup and made me question my decision all over again. Any insight would be appreciated. So I may not answer his question directly because I don't even know what that Next Wave CNC style fence is. I could look it up, but I think there's a bigger question to address here, and that is buying your last tool first. Right? There's a piece of advice out there if you go into forums and you start asking questions about which one should I get, inevitably, or I'm sorry, so Shannon can understand me. Invariably. Someone will indubitably, someone will at some point say, spend as much as your budget will allow and get your last tool first. And the logic being, you don't have to sell it and buy a new one and upgrade 3 or 4 times. But there is a problem with that. Here's a relatively new woodworker, apparently has the budget to do something and buy something very, very high quality, but doesn't even know enough about it to know which one is better for him. That's a really troubling situation to be in because he's going to invest in something that's very expensive and may find out down the road that it wasn't the right one. And this is why the other side, I think the opposite argument to buying your last tool first actually does make some sense. If you buy something a little less expensive and learn on it, learn about the tool, by the time you're ready to upgrade, you know so much more. And you don't have to ask, 3 goofballs on a podcast which one to get because you'll know which one to get. So I might actually recommend, Mike, that you get something a little less expensive. $2,000 for a for a setup like that that's a lot of money.
Forgive my ignorance, having been away from router tables for a while. Can you spend $2,000 on a router table?
You could certainly do that with Incra. Sorry.
That sounds like a lot of money.
It really is. But if you get like the deluxe system with all the add-ons and everything like that,
I had a JESSM lift, like, the above the table thing. That was the latest technology back when I was using router tools.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, all told, it was like $600.
But you got to throw
that was a lot of money.
You got to throw in a 3-horse router in there as well. The cost of the table. Here, let me look. I'm looking for the combo kits.
I guess I built my own table.
This one's called The Works. I'm on Incra's site right now. So The Works at Incra is $12.99. So throw in a 3-horsepower router, a good quality one. You're pushing close to $2,000. So anyway, that's my point here is,
nuts.
I mean, I like the Incra. It's great. It works well for me. Certainly if you're going to be, making boxes there, that's a great choice. Lots of box makers will utilize that, and its joinery capabilities are fantastic. But I'm afraid to see you drop that much money on something that you're not that sure about. And there are way cheaper methods to get that knowledge. And then when you're done with it, when you've reached everything that thing can do and you've maxed it out, sell it. You'll probably get 75% of what you invested in it, but you'll save that much money by not buying the wrong thing in the premium version of what you buy.
I just remember when I was building a lot of boxes, when I was doing craft show type stuff, all of my jigs were jigs that I made in my shop, not because I was like trying to save money, but because it was something so specific to whatever it was I was building that it was just easier to go ahead and build, something for that. And I was batching out a bunch of stuff. I think with these really, really expensive things, I mean, Incra's a cool brand, but why it's so fancy is because you can do all kinds of adjustments and stuff with it. Well, if you don't use half or, 3/4 of the adjustments, then
it's wasted on you.
You wasted some money. Yeah,
sure. Something to think about. It's a lot of money, so I get the hesitation, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could go hand tools and buy
no. Shh, don't even.
A plane with.
We're going to end it right there. Matt, it's your turn.
This is from Rudd. It says, when building a chair, does it matter which way the grain runs on the seat? Doesn't matter. As a
Mr. Chair Professional over here.
As a newly accustomed to chair making person, I had this exact kind of realization at the class. So when Paul, the instructor, he cut up all the seats for us, the blanks for him on the bandsaw, and some of the people's seats had the grain running across, and then some had it running front to back. Mine was running front to back, which looked cool to me. So I was excited about that. So the answer is, I think it's aesthetics more than anything.
What species did you use over there for that?
Ash.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Can I add something to this? I don't
No.
Jump all over here, Matt.
One comment though, because when I did the stool at Mark's place, I had it running the other way across.
Yeah.
So I've done both.
Right, but the dimensions on this thing, which is
a toilet seat thing.
which is in my which is in my hand right now, it's a very wide seat, and it's answer like the normal question we would answer with is like, what grain direction do you go with? Well, typically you go with a long dimension. So with this particular stool, I mean, we decided we didn't really like the dimensions, but ultimately I think if the grain was running the other way on this chair, it would look weird, So it's
not what it probably. I think when you get to that size, I guess because the ones that we were doing, the blank was mostly square.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah, and that's kind of where I was going, Mark. Is it depends on the design. A lot of Windsor chairs, like 18 to 20 inch wide 8/4 stock, is what you're looking for a seat blank. And I just went straight to Windsors because, I mean, I guess any plank seat is really what we're talking about. If it's a frame slip seat, then who cares? Yeah. It's whatever direction the batting tells you to run. But there's something to think about, not so much in grain direction, but which side, bark side or pith side, to think about. Because as the tree dries or as it goes through moisture changes, it's going to want to cup. and it will cup in one direction and it will bow in the other direction. And as you're hollowing or saddling the seat out, you're exposing a lot of end grain. So you're allowing much more moisture transfer to happen. So it's best to work in such a way. Well, it's best to see, the minute you say it's best to do something, then you can go, well, except on Tuesdays in the month of February, it doesn't work. Certainly there's an overwhelming side of things that says aesthetics is something, but if you're painting the chair, who the heck cares, right? But if the chair is going to cup and go kind of in the same shape as the hollow, that's a good thing, but if it's going to cup and kind of add a little bump where you've hollowed things out, then that might be a bad thing. Or I don't know, you like that. You're into that. But that's the only thing. I remember talking to Curtis Buchanan about this, and he gets really specific about bark side or pith side up, and he'll actually change it depending on whether he's going to paint it or not, because there's also a different grain direction that happens there, a grain appearance. But as far as front to back or left to right, nah.
Just go diagonal. Buck the trend if you're going to do it.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. This is from Travis. He says, sorry for the text question. Some people have a face for radio. I have a voice for newspaper.
Okay.
Matt, newspapers, they were things that the news used to come in them, and they would come on the street corner, and you would get kids about your size running around going, hey, extra.
On the street corner where I usually hang out?
Yep, yeah. with your essential oils and feathers.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Continue.
Anyway, Travis recently acquired a wooden rabbet plane. It has a slot for the little nicker blade for scoring the edge of a rabbet, but it has no such blade. Knowing that scoring the fibers will lead to a cleaner rabbet, where can I find a replacement short of hiring a blacksmith? I'm not adverse to a little file work to shape things if I have no better starting point than buy a bar of steel. So yeah, that's one option. Go buy a bar of steel. The first things first here, most of the traditional wooden rabbet planes do not have a nicker because a rabbet goes with the grain. You don't need to score the edge of a rabbet because you're working with the grain. So first thing I would check is make sure you don't have a dado plane. Because if it has a nicker, it might be a dado plane, and it's going to cut.
You might have a dado plane.
You might not have what you think you have. But at the same time, rabbet planes also come with a skewed blade meant to work both with the grain and across the grain. And I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere out there somebody decided to put a nicker in there. So the first thing you should do, I would say, is reach out to the traditional sources for vintage planes. Call like Jim Bodie at Jim Bodie Tools. What's his name? Superior Toolworks. Man, I'm really bad with names today. Just go to Superior Toolworks and look him up. Josh Clark at hyperkitten.com. Contact any of those guys, because a lot of times they end up having a lot of extra parts floating around. As they are trying to, they're buying huge lots, huge collections, and it's usually boxes full of tools. And you'll end up with just these random parts. It's kind of like when you take apart, your VCR, and suddenly you put it back together, and there's 3 extra parts. You just throw it in a box.
Take apart your what?
Our VCR, Matt. It's for.
It's a video cassette recorder. Black plastic box.
Likewise, I was just at Liberty Tools up in Maine, and they have like a card catalog looking thing. It goes on a library, and Matt, a library.
This'll never get old.
We wrote stuff down, but they have like this whole card catalog looking thing filled with plane parts. Like one drawer has nothing but lever caps, one drawer has nothing but blades, and you can contact Liberty Tools over the phone. And Matt, the phone. Sorry, running this joke into the ground. You can call them or email them, and they could probably tell you if they have a part like that. So that would be like the best place, I would think, is go to any of the tool dealers, and they probably got a bunch of extra stuff. Then you could actually contact any of the new makers of planes, like Phil Edwards at Philly Planes in the UK. He makes planes with nickers, so he may actually have a blade, and he may actually sell one to you. And that would be, probably your least amount of work, but most money spent. Or just buy a bar steel and
get started.
Yeah, just start filing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for the show. You can help us out if you want to. Go to Wood Talk. What the heck? Patreon.com/Wood Talk. Yeah, I got this memorized. Don't worry about it. Got it. You can go to twwstore.com and you can pick up a Wood Talk t-shirt, or you could leave us a review in the iTunes store, or really any place that has podcast reviews. Reviews are always very helpful. Usually helps our ratings and helps people find the show. And Shannon, why don't you give them the contact info and we'll get out of here.
I'd love to. Let's see. As soon as I find it. Oh, yeah. If you have stuff you want to tell us, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can send us a voicemail using your voice memo app and send that to woodtalkonline@gmail.com, or you can go to our contact form, woodtalkshow.com/contact, and leave a comment also on the actual show page at woodtalkshow.com. All of those work. You can find us on Instagram at woodtalkshow, Twitter at woodtalkshow, as well as on the Facebook. So please, all you wonderful Photoshop people, thank you for the Mount Rushmore image that you came up with this week. Your assignment this week is Matt on the street corner. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. With feathers.
Oh,
with feathers. Matt with feathers.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Boom. All right. That is 411. And that is done.
Matt with feathers and essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of no other title that will work for that.
It's an obvious one today.
Oh, am I supposed to pick another email?
Yeah, we got another show to do.
Oh, I know we're doing emails again.
What else are we going to do?
I've never done the second show yet.
Oh. Okay.
Oh.
I guess I'll go through this form thing and find something that's
Well, do we need one? Let's look. We've got one co-answer question to, oh yeah, I guess, and four voicemails.
Yeah. Some of them are kickbacks, so.
Yeah. Come on, Matt.
Are there any good ones on Patreon still?
I don't know.
Anything I could answer?
I didn't even think we were asking anymore, so I didn't even bother to
no,
check.
we've been asking, but
I saw the whole text stream that apparently we've been locked out of Patreon questions.
Yeah, we don't get to do those anymore. Those are just for Mark now?
Yep.
My personal supply of questions.
Private stash.
Oh, shnikes. Let's see.
I don't know if I can add anything to any of these questions in this form.
We're going to start sending all spring pole lathe questions to Matt now.
Hey, I'm like an expert. I got 3 days on that thing. That's pretty good.
Doesn't take much more than that. You're just going to forget it all by the time you get back to one.
I think I might actually make one. Not that I'll probably use it that much, but I think it'd be an interesting thing to make.
It's just fun to use like in the backyard. You know, I've got the pole lathe I set up in my shop, and I actually rarely use it because I actually like being outside. And it's very nice.
You know, this is funny. So I got a email from a guild member who is really frustrated because they can't find their project. So he knows he has 2 projects, the gaming table and the shaker table. And he's like, I just bought the shaker table. I can't see it. And he's really frustrated. And I just looked him up. He's got 2 separate accounts. And he bought one project on one account because he has 2 different emails.
That'll do it.
Yeah. It's like, that's why you should have one email.
I've had to, and it's not easy to merge them either. I don't know how Woo is, but my platform, because it is the unique identifier.
Yeah.
And like, you know, across merchant gateways, across the membership plugin, across the shopping cart. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a nightmare. I had to like reformat it several times, which then kicked it back to my email marketing supplier and tried to create a new person there. And I was like, no, stop it.
There would be no merging. It's just delete and then add the guy's project to the other one that we're keeping open.
I know that now.
Yeah.
If only I had known that then, it would have saved me much heartache.
Did you get a question, Matt? Are we still waiting for you?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, let me see if there's anything on Patreon for you. Patreon. Do-do-do-do. I got a sneak peek of some stuff coming on Patreon that was looking pretty good.
Oh, did you do that thing?
Mm-hmm. They have like they might be doing auto shipping, like you could send them stickers. So at least your lower level
thank God.
rewards, like they will ship out the stickers. How great is that? And they're going to change everything to make it easier, where you can just see like it's based on actions. So this many people need this thing. Have you done this yet? You know, and it's like a much more intuitive system that they're working toward, which is good.
Nice.
Okay, so let me see. A couple more questions came in since we started the show. So let me see if there's anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oops, excuse me. Someone's got a jointer problem.
Matt has a joiner.
Yeah, he can get this one. Using hide glue on a workbench.
Oh, definitely.
You want that one?
I don't know. Is it glue? Is it sticky?
Does it stick? Okay, I'll use it.
I went through a gallon of glue when I built my workbench. I don't think I want to buy a gallon of hide glue.
All right, let's just leave it as is. I mean, there's enough questions there. We have no problem filling time.
Yeah.
Especially if you just say, all right, Matt, you can go now. You're going to burn like 3 minutes there. All right, who's shaving?
Is that the dryer?
The dryer.
It sounded like an electric shaver.
The Harry's ad.
No, it's not. Okay, I think we're ready. You ready? I'm ready.
Okay.
Welcome to Wood Talk. Now here are three guys who could do that too, if they had those tools. Mark, Shannon, and Matt.
All right, it's Wood Talk number 412 for, what are we in, October already? October 2nd, 2017. On today's show, we're talking about plain blade troubleshooting, keeping things square, cleaning furniture, and shop-made tools. And this is our second recording for the day, so we're just going to shoot into our emails and voicemails and try to answer as many as we can. Hopefully we'll actually give some good answers. So I guess I'll go first. This one here is from, darn it, did I not put the person's name there? I did. I hate when I do that. I like giving people credit. Okay.
Gee, always screwing up, Mark.
It's always something with me. I'm a slacker. I barely even want to do this show. I mean,
They're all just numbers to you anyway.
Yeah.
Customer 11734.
It's all statistics. Who cares? Okay. On Mark's Friday live show, I remember him joking about Nicole using Pledge to clean with early in his woodworking career, and him correcting her. I know enough that I shouldn't use products like that, but I don't really know what the reasons are for it. And more importantly, I don't know what the best way is to clean and maintain different finishes.
This is like a social commentary. I just know that I'm not supposed to do it. I don't know why.
Yeah, I have no idea why.
I'm supposed to.
Any light you three could shed on this would be appreciated. Now, I can't claim that this is like a rule, a hard and fast rule that everyone should follow. But generally speaking, I don't like to clean my interior furniture with waxy stuff or oily stuff. The surfaces that I finish them, or the surface that's there, is a cured resin. So I don't really need to add something like wax or anything like that. A lot of people like it, though, because it can freshen up the look a little bit. But then once you have that crap on there, it's like you're stuck with it. You have to keep using it in order to keep it looking good. So we just clean our furniture with, a little dust mop type thing, or a slightly dampened, microfiber cloth or whatever. Nothing special, just a little bit of water on there is all you need. Just get the dust off. And if it's something that's like a bigger, if you have kids, you're going to have lots of food stains and crap like that. Well, these finishes usually can withstand a little sponge action with a little bit of water, and then you just wipe it away. So I just don't feel the need to use any special products on furniture like that. And again, this is just me. I'm curious to hear from you guys. Do you do anything beyond just a little damp rag for maintenance of furniture?
No, same thing with one of those like microfiber type thingies.
Mm-hmm.
Just dampen it up. And now I've got some cheap furniture still left in the house that
Yeah.
I will use. I use the same, what is it? That's what I use on my hardwood floors. That's an oil of some sort.
Like a lemon oil type thing?
Yeah, like it's not this, but like a mop and glow type product or whatever. And on the cheap furniture, I will use that because it doesn't have that hard resin varnish or whatever that I put over top of it on
Right.
a lot of the furniture that I've built. And I also find that because the furniture that I built has that higher quality finish on it, it cleans easier. Like the dust just comes right off.
Yeah.
So you don't really need any heavy scrubbing or really a lot of lubricant at all. So that microfiber thing does a really good job.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? We know Lindsay does all the cleaning, but when you watch her clean, what does she do?
It's like a Swiffer cloth, but I have to ask though, did anybody else, like when they're growing up, grab the pledge can if you had hardwood floors and like spray it on the floor so that way you could like slide further?
No, I lived in New Jersey and had linoleum. So what we did was we grabbed wax paper and rub our socks on the wax paper, and man, that will send you across linoleum like a friggin' bullet. Absolutely. That's what we used to do.
Good stuff, man.
But actually, now that you're mentioning it, the whole pledge, I have hardwood floors now, so I might have to try that out.
Oh, it's great.
Nice. What a great game to play with Mateo.
Oh yeah.
Like, here, buddy, let me.
You're like, when my mom found out, she's like walking along, like thinking back now, I'm kind of evil because like she's like not expecting anything, takes a step and her foot flies out underneath there. You know, you see how nimble she is. She's pretty good though. She never fell.
A little baby Cremona's there going, later. Yay!
She was like, stop putting pledge on the floor.
That's awesome. Yeah, like don't put any like lubricating material on your steering wheel, like that kind of common sense thing. You know, Matt don't care. He just wants a shiny. Okay, so that's about it. Shannon, I think you got the next one.
Sure. It's from Cody. He says, I recently picked up an old Miller's Falls number 9. That's a hand plane, by the way, for people like me that don't really know the numbers of all these things.
Yeah.
That is a hand plane.
Size is that?
I have no idea. It's a number 9. It's
I don't know what, like, is it big?
Like I said, I don't know these things. It's a bench plane. That's as far as I know. Okay. I thought I would get it back into shape, and it doesn't seem to want to cut in the middle. I used 3 different grits of diamond stones to get a nice, sharp, square edge. I
love your accent. It's got a nice, strong edge on it,
But the blade, it digs in on one side. A lateral adjustment sends it to the other side, and splitting the difference makes it dig in on each side and not in the middle. I did some minor sole flattening, but not much. I can run my finger along the mouth and blade edge, and I do feel as if the blade recedes a little into the middle. But visually, everything looks square and even. Any ideas? So the first thing I would say is you do want to take a straight edge to that plane sole and just see. A lot of times you'll end up with a slight hollow in the middle of the sole, specifically right at the mouth, because that's where the casting is the weakest. And over time, the casting, the iron will actually move a little bit. It can warp and twist and cup and bow, kind of like wood, not nearly as extremely as wood, but some of these planes can be really quite old. So you may actually have a bit of a hollow there, and that's what's causing some of the issues where you're not being able to get a cut in the middle. Or you may find that there are other oddities to the sole that are actually causing the blade to ride up and out of the cut. So maybe your blade is having to extend a little bit further in order to get a cut, and it's like trying to hit a moving target. If your sole is not really flat, if you don't have a good reference surface for that plane, it's really hard to adjust the blade appropriately to get the cut right, because you just don't know. Depending on where your pressure is on that sole or where you are in the plane stroke, it could actually change how that blade is being presented to the wood. So that's the first thing I would do, is really double check and make sure that it is flat right by the mouth, in front of the mouth, and behind the mouth. And ideally, you've got a flat spot on the toe and the heel, so that it's kind of anchored. It doesn't have to be flat from stem to stern on the sole, but you definitely want it flat right by the mouth. Then I would look at the blade, and there's a lot of people that will tell you that every single plane blade you should use should have a slight curvature to it. I'm not really one of those people. I do like to keep a square blade in my joiner plane, because I'm using that to, joint edges to glue up panels and things like that. But even then, I will tend to kind of clip the corners off on my blade. So I'm not really sharpening a curve or a camber into the blade. I'm just kind of putting a chamfer right on the edge of that. And what that does is prevent the sharp corner from digging in. And that's probably what you're seeing a little bit, which is probably also compounded by the fact that your blade may be extending a little bit further than it needs to be, because your sole may be out of flat. So certainly you can grind grinds to extreme hone on a stone or something like that, a very fine curve like you would in a smoothing plane, so that what happens when you set up the plane, the corners of the blade are actually tucked up into the sole, and the only part of the blade that's exposed is in the middle, which is the opposite of what you're experiencing. So there's a couple things going on here. I'd be willing to bet that you've got some out of flatness in your sole, but I still, it sounded like a spiritual thing.
You got some out of flatness in your soul.
You got to get right with your soul. So
fire and brimstone over here.
I would also recommend, if not grinding a camber, then clipping those corners. And literally, it's just a matter of take your stone, put the blade up on its side, and just kind of run the corner off. Or you can even use a file. It sounds like sacrilege, but since your soul's out of whack already, you might as well go ahead and do it. You're just nipping the corner off a little bit so that it's not quite so dramatic, and it's not going to dig into the wood dramatically there. But
okay,
that's all I got.
All right,
that's all I got on that. I feel like I should look up Miller's Falls number 9 now, so that I.
Someone says it's a smoothing plane.
Wow.
Chat room
is
says.
it? Well, then
That's
even
what the
more
chat
reason to it's a shorter. Yeah, it's a smoothing plane. So even more reason why, because you're going to be taking a light cut with that to begin with, you want to tuck those corners back up in on the blade. So again, either just clipping them off or putting a slight camber on there. And that can be accomplished just with a little bit of extra pressure on the two edges, a couple extra 5-10 extra strokes on the stone on those edges, and it will be enough to just slightly relieve things a little for you.
Mm-hmm. Save your soul.
Yes.
All right.
And please, right your soul.
Yes, we got some voicemails here. The first one here is from Matt.
Hey guys, this is Matt out here from Oregon. My question is for Matt and or Shannon, mostly Matt. Hey man, I just want to be you, dude. Maybe taller, more muscular, and hairless.
What?
But still
Hairless?
you.
That's Matt's best
My question
traits.
is bandsaw mill versus chainsaw mill.
Hairless.
Trying to make to decide whether or not if I want to just go ahead and build a monster bandsaw mill with your direction guidance via video, or start off with a chainsaw mill and build up. I have plenty of space, plenty of room to build such mill, and I'm a pretty decent fabricator and also have access to a plasma CNC. So that makes me wonder, or am I just getting ahead of myself in this and need to slow down and start off maybe with the chainsaw mill? Finally, Shannon, just cut down a monster 4-foot diameter by 4-foot diameter silver maple over here in Oregon. Just curious what you know about silver maple, hardness and such, and how easy it is to work with. Thanks, guys. Love the show. Appreciate all of you.
Cool. Okay.
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
So, the hardest part about answering that question, because I've been getting that a lot lately, is like, it so depends on the person. If you know in your heart of hearts that you're going to want to mill lumber and you're going to love it and you're going to want to keep doing it, then you could probably skip the chainsaw mill and go straight to the bandsaw mill. But if you're not really sure if like making your own lumber is kind of a thing for you and you're just not quite there yet, starting with a chainsaw mill is definitely a good way to go as well, because it's a lower cost of entry. And if you really think about it, if you're going to be doing any milling at all, the chainsaw mill or bandsaw mill, you're working with logs, you're going to want a chainsaw regardless. So your cost to entry, if you think about it that way, is going to be even lower in a sense, just going to a chainsaw mill too. So maybe you just get a chainsaw mill just to have one, and in your spare time while using that thing, you just work on your bandsaw mill. Well, that could work, I guess.
There you go.
Could work. Sure. Why not?
Do you think you learned anything by starting with an Alaskan mill, chainsaw mill, before going to a band mill? Like, was there any kind of? I honestly don't know. I'm curious.
No, not really, because I was around bandsaw mills before. The chainsaw milling I always did was just so I could do some stuff here when I didn't want to be in my house, basically.
When you need a little getaway.
When you need a little getaway.
The scent of
one
pledge
thing-
is just too strong. You had to get out.
Yeah, but most people just go watch football. Matt decided to start cutting down trees.
Yeah, just dropping
Nice.
some logs in the backyard and cutting them up. No, I
Dropping logs.
I can't think of anything like specifically that you would learn doing the chainsaw mill first, other than, holy crap, this is a lot of work. The bandsaw mill is a lot faster and easier. But
Appreciation, maybe.
you get some. I guess you get an appreciation for it. You understand. Well, I guess you understand the whole idea of how important having a flat reference is. So, depending on the bandsaw mill you make or you buy, if the bed itself is kind of chintzy and kind of not the strongest, then you have to level it because it won't stay flat under its own, I don't know, strength or whatever you want to call it. So like mine, when I built mine, it's rigid enough that its predisposition is flat. Like if you raise one corner, the other corner is going to come up with it and it's going to stay flat, but maybe not level anymore. For instance, if you do that on a smaller mill that has like angle iron for sides, you lift one corner up, one corner goes up, the other three corners stay down. You just put a twist in the bed. So you have a little more to worry about keeping that bed flat. And with the chainsaw mill, you really get to understand that because your first cut needs to be dead flat. You need to make that guide for that chainsaw flat from the beginning, because your work there to make that first cut that's the longest part of the whole chainsaw milling process, is getting ready to make that first cut. But if you screw that up, every single cut after that is going to be goofy or come some kind of wonk thing. So there's that, I guess.
Okay.
That's good. I like that.
Very good.
Yeah, I made that up.
All
On
right.
the spot.
Good to know.
Sounds good.
Let's see, who was this? Lyle? No, Matt. Silver maple is Acer saccharum, also known as sugar maple or just hard maple. So in case you were thinking you had some sort of, super special species of maple, no, just hard maple.
You think you're special? You're not.
No, you're not special at all. It's pretty much the maple most people know. It's a hard, 1460, 1480 pounds per square inch Jenka hardness. Very, very, very small diffuse porous structure, so not a lot of compression. It's pretty much the maple that most people are used to. So
Did you say sugar maple or silver maple? I thought it was silver maple.
It's the same thing.
Silver maple?
Yeah, Acer saccharum. It's sugar maple or hard maple.
Silver maple is not hard maple.
It absolutely is hard maple.
Yes!
It is not.
You guys, keep going.
All right. Let's go to Google.
Shannon, I think you said something about your mom, too.
Yeah.
I want to see you guys fight.
My workbench is made out of silver maple. It is not hard maple.
Silverleaf maple, soft maple, creek maple, swamp maple, or white maple. Does not say hard maple.
Did you say wop maple?
Swamp maple.
Oh, it was a wop maple. I want some of that.
He can say it. He looks the part.
Wop maple.
And that is that Acer saccharinum. So it's soft maple, right?
Think saccharin, like sweetener.
Yes.
And sugar maple.
Okay. Do you have to spend more time on this, or can I go to Lyle's voicemail?
We'll come back to Shannon.
Well, yeah.
I'm gonna dig here, but
He's
as far
got a
as I
confused
know,
look on his face.
You do that
as
while
I know, silver, sugar, hard maple, they're all the same. I mean, hard maple is a industry term. It's not a botanical name. But
well, let's find out. Google will tell us.
red maple is soft maple or Acer rubrum.
Okay. Meanwhile, Lyle's voicemail here makes me uncomfortable.
This is a Roy D. Mercer. How y'all doing there? I really appreciate what you boys are doing for this here woodworking community. Mark, Matt, and Shannon, thank you very much. And listen, I got a question for you. I was working on a project in my shop here, and I'm pretty new to woodworking and everything, but my daughter Letitia and now we listen to your podcast all the time, and we really like it. And we was trying to she want to build a little set of a bookend, and we was wondering what kind of wood you want to recommend. She's trying to do, we like the arts and crafts style, for the bookend. I don't know what kind of wood she also like the shaker style. And, what would you recommend for style? You want to put a little, an OG on there, a little trim, and I don't know. Just thought to throw it by you boys and see it. It's not a big project, you know. No, seriously, folks. Seriously.
I'm very, very uncomfortable with that.
Wow, I'm not.
It's out of breath.
That's a heck of a impression to keep running for that long.
Oh, that was an impression, huh?
Well, I don't listen to it, but I think it's from a radio show. It's like a prank call character that's used. Roy D. Mercer.
I don't pay attention.
It's that kind of comedy that's not really funny. You know what I'm talking about? Like the Jeff Foxworthy, Larry the Cable Guy comedy that's not really funny. Okay.
I'm sure someone's going to have to say something about that now.
Most likely.
We're going to get something about that.
I just don't find it funny. Everything I'm finding here is indicating that Shannon is correct. Sorry.
Actually, I'm not correct.
Well, then
I could see why I'm thinking this. Silver maple or sugar maple, Acer saccharum. That's also hard maple. It's the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Silver maple is Acer saccharinum. There's an extra syllable in there.
Oh, yes.
That is a much softer version. So I apologize. You're right, Matt. I can't read. Saccharinum.
You should have that guy call in and
Roy D. Mercer. Saccharinum.
That is a very fine distinction in the Latin name there.
Well, and I saw it before, but I just assumed that it was it was a Google search result. So I just figured, you know how Google tends to show you whatever the misspellings are at the same time. So no, that is actually a different species.
Wow.
And it's 700 pounds per square inch Janka. So it's actually softer than soft maple or red maple. As far as the working properties of it, if you've seen the video that I just put out last week on YouTube, I show you how to do this. But go to Wood Database. You look up that hardness is one thing to look at, but looking at the end grain, it's very much the same end grain you would expect to see of a hard maple. So, I mean, it's going to be, while it's 700 pounds per square inch, I guarantee you it's probably going to work probably a little bit more difficult than cherry would be, because it's denser than cherry. It's got smaller pores, but still not a bad wood to work with that kind of hardness. So go for it.
There are few things in the world more satisfying than proving Shannon wrong.
Yeah.
I
feel better, though. I mean, I feel better looking at it and going, well, it's the same thing. Oh, wait, no, there's an I, not
maybe
you. So
it got me, too. I was looking at them, and I didn't even notice that.
Stupid Latin botanical names.
And actually, Make Brooklyn in the chat room says that guy who called in sounded like Foghorn Leghorn calling in while jogging.
I'll say.
That's pretty good. Matt, that's a cartoon. Very early cartoon.
What? A cartoon. Like a vehicle?
It's a cartoon character. Okay, so Tyler has an email. Tyler also thinks he's funny.
Oh boy.
Hi guys, long-time listener, first-time caller. Mark, how dare you threaten to leave the show? Now that I'm no longer a frat boy or in the Marines, this is my only go-to for hardwood jokes. But I understand how busy it gets when you don't have a 8-to-5 job. Matt, I've been loving the videos on the Queen Anne Highboy. Excited to see you finish off the project. How will you put on the top finial pieces? Do you use a ladder, or do you get a normal-sized person to do it for you? And for Shannon, thank you for your recent video on the properties of wood. Very informative. I've been thinking about this topic for a while, and this fills a huge gap of info that's been missing from YouTube. Heaven forbid I open a book. Sorry, Shannon, I don't have a good insult for you, but maybe next time. Thanks again, guys.
How do you not have an insult for Shannon?
Yeah, YouTube didn't have any problem at all.
No, you had a recent one that was pretty bad.
What was I called? The child molester, I think.
Something
like
that.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
yeah, that was a good one.
Did I tell you about
I let most comments go, but that one I deleted.
That one you might not want to touch. Yeah. Did I tell you guys about the guy who said he wants to punch me in the face so hard that his fist goes all the way to the back of my throat?
Right, which anatomically I have issues with, but
it would hurt. I can definitely. I mean, even trying it would hurt. So
I just think you would have to be really tall because it'd have to be punching at a downward angle to hit your face, and then go down to your throat. So
yes, I could be cowering on my knees.
Could be, yeah.
In fear of the YouTube commenter.
Or laying completely flat if it were Matt.
It could be, yes.
Your knees still would be low enough.
You know what? We love the insulting emails and voicemails. They're great.
Yeah, come on, Tyler, up your game, man.
Yeah.
That was weak.
And I use a jetpack.
The eighth not having an 8 to 5 job was actually subtle and funny. I like that one.
That's pretty good.
Okay, so we got one last voicemail from Zev.
Hey guys, Zev here from Queens, New York. Just calling to share a experience I had recently. Just got fed up with my little job site table saw from SawStop. It's a good saw, just too small, not precise enough. Just wanted to step it up a little bit, so I ordered the PCS. They're bigger, from the bigger cabinets all from SawStop, but I just don't have the space to have two saws in the same time in the shop. And anyway, I cut down the MDF insert and trimmed down the rails with an angle grinder so I could fit it in my small shop. But there was a period of time when I had sold my SawStop job site and the PCS hadn't arrived yet, and I needed to do some ripping. I'm working on an outdoor table with had slats in the middle, 11 3-inch slats, and to sort of fit in a little octagon table. So trying to figure out how am I supposed to accurately rip these to width. So I always hear people.
I'm just going to cut through this a little bit. It's like a 3-minute voicemail, and the bottom line is he used his bandsaw and didn't get great results, and is wondering, like, in the real world, how many people have a bandsaw that's tuned up well enough to do things like cutting joinery, basically table saw replacement type things. So it was more of a statement than a question necessarily, but he was commenting on even though his bandsaw is a decent quality and he's got it calibrated, he doesn't feel that it would be a good substitute for table saws if we're contemplating what life without a table saw would be like. There, I summed it up for him.
There you go.
I don't have anything much to add to that. I do it sometimes. I've demoed it before. I still have my table saw, so I use that for most things.
Who has a bandsaw tuned up that much? Somebody who doesn't have a table saw.
Yeah, who absolutely needs that. Yeah, someone who doesn't have two table saws in the works. He's got his old one going out and a new one coming in. So I think if you take more of a hybrid approach to it, that opens up some possibilities, so that even if your stuff isn't absolutely perfect coming off of the bandsaw, you could still get close enough that by the time you get back to the workbench, a few passes with a plane, a little bit of action on the shoulders, you could probably get some really good results.
A little bit of action on the shoulders.
Yeah, I like a little action on the shoulders.
Love it. Well, yeah, I think when I did the bridle frame.
Yeah, bridle joints,
joint frame on the bandsaw.
Yep. Yeah, that was a perfectly reasonable way. And those joints didn't have to be perfect.
That was a perfectly reasonable way.
It was a perfectly reasonable way to do it. So, yeah, I mean, it's totally possible.
Not the right way, but it's a perfectly reasonable way to do it.
But I don't think the bandsaw needs to be, like, calibrated to the level that it can cut perfect, 16th of an inch veneer sheets. You don't need it to be that perfect, especially if you're talking about joinery. Most of the time, you're only working on, like, a 2-inch or 3-inch wide piece. So it doesn't have to be calibrated that well, but knowing what to do with it once it gets off the bandsaw probably is a good idea too.
Well, I mean, when you think about it in terms of like the hybrid shop, a lot of folks I know that the only power tool they have is a bandsaw because they don't want to do the heavy ripping type work. Mm-hmm. And, so they're planning on doing whatever plain jointing work after the fact. But if you say in your example or his example, I don't know, because you cut him off, so I don't know what his example was. Is the bandsaw precise enough to cut joinery? Well, are your handsaw skills precise enough to cut joinery? I mean, because that's usually what's happening in a lot of these hybrid shops. They're saving the precision, air quotes, precision work for their hand tools. So it seems to me, no matter how out of tune your bandsaw is, it's probably still going to be a bit more precise. Let's be honest. I mean, you've got a flat table that hopefully is 90 degrees to the blade. So, I mean, I think it's probably plenty precise to cut joinery. You see lots of people doing dovetails on a bandsaw. I've seen that demo done a whole bunch of times. You can cut a tenon cheek with it. I mean, if you can resaw a board and get a consistent thickness piece out of it, you can certainly cut tenon cheeks.
Yeah.
On it. So
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just comes down to the cleanliness of the cut. But again, it's not any dirtier. It's not any dirtier than a handsaw cut. Like a handsawed tenon cheek looks a little fuzzy like a bandsaw tenon cheek. So yeah, why not?
But don't we overestimate like how smooth a tenon cheek truly needs to be anyway? Like,
yeah,
I don't know if that's part of his complaint, but if it is a little fuzzy, so what?
Yeah.
You know, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I shoot for joinery that fits off the saw as much as possible,
Yeah.
which means all of my joinery has fuzzy faces. Like that.
I want to see little animated fuzzy face joinery. It sounds so cute.
It does.
All right, so we have 2 more email questions here, and these are going to be sort of group answers for us. Do you want to read that first one, Shannon?
Sure. This is from Ben. He says, I have a question in regards to keeping things square, plumb, and true. With a lack of skills and not so great tools, I often find my joints come out a little on the crap side. and so I'm wondering, what do you guys do when your joints aren't as hot as you'd like? Do you force them into alignment locally and accept it as going to knock things out of square globally? Or would you rather the end result be square and have gaps locally? Obviously, the best advice is be less crap and more pro like that Kyle Toth fella, but I don't have the balls. Nice. Keep up the good work, guys. It's mostly acceptable. Mostly.
Yay.
Thank you, Ben. So, yeah, I don't know. Do I try to force it? I mean, it's a good way to look at it. Do you force it square locally, knowing that it could throw things off later? Or, I don't know. To me, the global is much more important. Like, especially if I have moving parts, like if you're building a case and a door, like an inset door has to fit or a drawer has to fit in there, I would much rather that case be square. And if I end up creating a gap because I forced it into square elsewhere, I can fix that gap. I'd much rather do that than purposely build out a square like Mark.
That was exactly as out of square as I wanted it to be. I think I'm in the same boat as Shannon here. I think globally is my bigger concern. Because if you start, I don't know, just think about the beginning of a project to the end, you're talking about doors or some kind of casework, that little mistake, if you are adjusting for it and you knock something out of square that knocks the next part out of square, this thing's going to turn to crap. If you have those little local errors and you are keeping the global thing nice and square and keeping that in mind, I think you're actually in a better situation, personally. I mean, I can't see any justification for, forcing something on that local level at the expense of the global.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think, Matt?
I don't know. That's kind of a weird question in a sense. I think it really depends on the project you're doing and the part you're making. If I'm making a door, it's going to be inset. I'm going to make it oversized anyway, and then cut it to whatever the geometry of the opening is anyway. So if the door ends up out of square, but there's no gaps, that's most ideal in that case, because I'm going to trim it to fit the opening. It may not be square anyway. So I don't know. It's just kind of a weird way to think about it.
How about a super simple example? You're doing a picture frame, and your first miter, your first miter is off from 45. So do you just glue it together and make the miter tight, which now sets your frame out of square? Or do you let all 4 of your pieces go out of square so that your final frame is square? Now you've got 4 gaps to deal with.
I would just recut them.
We're assuming that you're not going to do that. I totally agree. You just make a new joint, right?
Come on, Mark. That's a stupid question.
Sorry, it's elementary. Yeah.
I think in that case, if I had to pick one, I think I would go with one open. Maybe. Depends how bad it is. If they can if the cumulative gaps aren't very noticeable, maybe then I would do that. But if it looks better with the one with the gap, but the other ones are tight, maybe I'd do that. I don't know. It would depend on how big the gap is, I guess, and how big the resulting gaps in the other ones would be if I distributed the error, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. It's quite a bit.
But really, the ultimate solution is what we're making jokes about it, but when you notice that joint is off, make it better.
Yeah, fix it now.
Do it better.
Now, worry about later.
Yeah, because
and I think that there's a whole group of skills there that comes with how do you fix out of square joinery? How do you fix, to use Ben's terminology, how do you fix crap joinery? And you'll probably be better off fixing that crap tenon now. There's any number of ways. If you cut that tenon wrong, glue the cheek back on if it's out of square or something, and then just recut it.
Yeah.
Or figure out ways to trim or pare or something in order to get that tenon gap free so that's coming together. Because I apologize, I really hate you guys that I have to think about what I say now, but invariably
you got to be careful on this show.
If that tenon, I'm just going to a tenon for some reason, but if that joint is crap, you may, when it comes time to do assembly, that's when it all goes to hell, and you may think, okay, well, I'm going to focus on getting this square, but maybe you forget, and you glue the thing up and things shift around on you, and it just makes things so much more difficult. So your best bet is to fix it when you realize it's screwed up. And there's lots and lots and lots of ways to fix crap joinery without having to, burn it and start over.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Okay. So the next one is from Andy, another group answer sort of question. Do you guys have any opinions on making tools for your shop instead of buying them? I'm more curious about power tools like DIY bandsaw mills or wooden jointers, but homemade hand tools count as well. Insert something funny here. Thanks, Andy. Okay.
It's a comedy show.
It is.
First and foremost.
So I'm thinking, throat trouble today. Matt's bandsaw mill is like a very, very different thing than building like a wooden jointer, in my opinion.
Well, it's kind of, I have sort of an interesting perspective on this because before I built that, I had zero interest in making my own tools. And I still kind of do, but I think it depends on your approach for things. Like you can either look at it like I can make it for less than I would have to spend to buy it because I don't have the money to buy that tool.
Sure.
Or I don't like how that tool's made. I can make it better, for instance. And in my case, it was that the sawmill, there would be no way with the volume that I do that buying a mill that large would ever make any financial sense for me, like at all.
Right.
But I think there's another distinction there too, because I look at your bandsaw mill as a little bit different than, what does he call them? DIY. See, and we're getting into terms here, but I mean, you broke out like the welder and you used some industrial materials to make that. But when I think of a wooden jointer or a wooden bandsaw, I need to change my shorts.
I want to run out of the room.
and I don't feel that way about your bandsaw mill, and that has absolutely nothing to do with your skill, Matt.
Have you seen his welds?
Yeah, I mean, they're...
Oh yeah, like Yeah.
Hey, I experienced some bad welds, and I know what they do when they're bad. So.
But I mean, you look at that bandsaw mill, especially now with the pretty paint and the stickers and everything, because we all know, just put stickers on things and it makes it look professional. But that to me was an incredibly well-built industrial machine that you built because of the materials you used. If you built that bandsaw mill out of plywood and solid lumber, I wouldn't feel that way, because let's be real, steel is stronger than wood, some woods. So I don't know. I mean, when I look at like wooden table saws, or even just the guy who like bolted his circular saw to the underside of a piece of plywood, that plywood will sag. Your tabletop will be out of flat. If not now, at some point. My router table went out of flat and it was stacked like 3 MDF sheets high. So it was super, super stiff. But over the course of 5 years, it sagged imperceptibly in the middle because that's not really what that material was made for. So, we're splitting hairs at this point because we're talking about, homemade tools. It just so happens Matt, like, homemade tool on crack is what he went with because of his materials that he chose. So, if you haven't figured it out, I'm kind of con on this. I'm all about homemade hand tools, but when things start moving under their own power and moving at high RPMs, I'm terrified.
I'll tell you
I don't
that.
trust myself. Just put it that way. My skills are not good enough.
When
That's
I
what it
turned
comes
my
down
sawmill on the first time, that was a scary experience because I had no idea. Like, I hope this works. I'm gonna stand back and bring it up to speed. And I got up to like 10%. I'm like, that's going pretty fast. And that's only 10%. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why people do it. I understand why there's an inclination, why these things are popular, because these are expensive tools. And if you could figure out a way to make it and not spend all that money and get some functionality out of it, then great. But I think, what Shannon was saying, what's the 5-year plan? What does this thing look like in 5 years? Plywood, solid wood, whatever you're making it out of, these things compress, they move. I don't trust really fast spinning blades to wood. Wood is the thing I cut with that blade, not the thing I want my motor mounted on. So, I personally...
Tuning up my table saw, the only reason that I ever had feeler gauges was to tune up the table saw and prevent run out and all that stuff. And the specialized tools that I have to use to check that it's tuned up.
Yeah.
If I'm running that dial caliper thing along a plywood surface, I just, you got to get in touch with your soul, man.
Yes. Flatten that soul. I don't know. I would like to hear from people who have had these tools in their shop for a long time. How do they hold up over time? Because I have never had one, so I'm only speculating here. But I don't know. It just seems like something that's going to be a future problem for you. But all the power to people who do it and enjoy them and get good use out of them. I mean, there's a lot of very resourceful people out there who are very smart and good with this stuff and can make good quality tools from their own shops. Yeah. But man, I want metal. I want all my stuff to be metal or some kind of high density plastic, something that I could trust my safety to.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to hand tools, I have no power, or no power. Literally, I have no problem whatsoever with that because it's a totally different situation. Your blade for the most part is static. I've made a wooden hand plane. I've made several spoke shaves. I've made multiple saws. And there is that, that warm feeling of I made this, how cool is it? Now I'm making something with something that I just made. That's cool. I'm not a huge fan of it because I would rather make stuff than make the tool itself, but I've certainly done it and I've gotten the reward out of it. But I just think it's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
It's powered by me, and I know how weak I am. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic, especially now. I think today there's a lot of people who don't necessarily, they're just super resourceful people. Maybe they don't have a ton of funds, but they have the inclination and the know-how to build things. So why not go down this path? It's a very popular mindset.
Right. Well, and commercial manufacturing techniques have become a lot more democratized with, 3D printers, the ability, just look at like Bob Claggett. And Dave Picciuto with laser cutters and CNCs and 3D printers and those. April Wilkinson's another great one. I mean, she's got a plasma cutter and several different welding torches, and it's like now you're getting into the realm that I'm talking about with Matt, where he built a bandsaw mill, but he used appropriate materials and hopefully knows a little bit of what he's doing. I don't know.
You got to look.
I've never
look at his welds
in my life, so I really don't.
It works. It didn't fall apart. So
I think Matt is the exception that proves the rule in this case. I would not call that your average DIY shop made tool at all.
Yeah,
I didn't make it in the shop. I made it in the driveway.
Yeah, driveway made tool.
Yeah, it doesn't even fit in the shop, even if I wanted it to.
Oh man, good stuff. All right, well I think that just about does it for the show. Do you have some contact information you can give these fine folks, Shannon?
I can make something up.
Yeah, go for
it. If you have comments, questions, topic suggestions for the show, and basically, want to correct me on my knowledge of wood, please, you can send us voicemails by using your voice memo app and email those to Wood. Just one time. I only make one mistake.
One a year. That's his quota.
Yeah. Please send those to woodtalkonline@gmail.com or go to our contact form at woodtalkshow.com/contact, or just go to the page to this episode, leave a comment and tell me all of the wood species that I know nothing about, because there are a lot of them. Or find us on Instagram and tell me all the wood species I know nothing about, or on Twitter. We're at Wood Talk Show on both of those platforms, and we're over on Facebook. And yeah, that's it. We all have our own websites too.
Or if you want to tell Shannon that he's a uppity snob because he doesn't use homemade tools, you could do that too.
By all means. And then I will respond to you by saying that's because I support I support my tool makers.
That's what it is.
And without tool makers, we would be a sad world.
It would be.
We'd all have to get in touch with our souls.
If I didn't have an $80 screwdriver, I would be a very, Very sad individual. An $80 elk head screwdriver. I love that thing.
Or 3 of them.
Oh.
I only got the one that they sent me for free because I didn't buy it.
I have 3 of them. One of them I bought, but yeah.
But
nice
seriously, are they not the best in-hand feel screwdriver you've ever had the opportunity to use?
No doubt.
I mean,
no doubt
it's so dense and heavy. Like, that's fantastic. I want to make a whole line of like cutlery with this that I could eat with in the house. Let's do it. DIY cutlery. These are safe, I promise. Okay.
Oh.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great woodworking week.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh, man. All right. That is done. All right. Well, thanks for hanging with us live, folks. We appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll see you in October.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's right.
Weird.
These long breaks are fantastic. All right. Let me kill the live stream.